All right, I'd now like to call this March 15th, 2012 Cookeville City Council meeting to order. Could we get a roll call, please?
Councilman Anderson.
Present.
Councilman Woodford.
Present.
Mayor Swallows.
Here.
Vice Mayor Epps.
Here.
Councilman Albright. Here. All present.
Thank you. Would everyone please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, consider approval of agenda as presented. Are there any additions, subtractions to the agenda?
No changes.
All right, do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I'll vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
All right, consider approval of minutes of council meeting held on March the 1st, 2012. Do I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I'll vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
All right, item 3, consider on second and final reading ordinance 120201, rezoning 423 North Peachtree Avenue from MS Medical Services to UNV University. Request submitted by CRMC and sponsors Mr. James Mills.
Mayor and council members, the subject property is depicted on the screen. This rezoning was requested by the medical center. Here's an aerial view. Here's the current zoning. The purpose of this request is to allow the hospital to swap property with the SAE fraternity, and for the fraternity to relocate this property. Fraternities are only allowed in the UNV zone, so that's why the rezoning is required. We've had no calls or comments since first reading, and would answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions, comments from the council? Any questions, comments from the audience? All right, seeing none, I'll vote.
5 yes votes, motion
Thank you.
carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. On to the consent agenda. Item 4, set a date 4/19/2012 for a public hearing on ordinance 120302, rezoning 610 and 626 North Peachtree Avenue from MS Medical Services to UNV University. And item 5, consider awarding bid for transformers from the electric department. Do I have a motion for approval on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any questions, comments? All right, seeing none, I'll vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
All right, on to new business. Consider on first reading ordinance 120303, amending the Cookeville Municipal Code, Title 9, by adding Chapter 11, relative to adopting regulations for the farmers market. Sponsor is City Manager Jim Shipley.
Mayor and council, this ordinance will establish the rules and regulations for the farmers market. We've had some rules, just written rules and regulations, but this will adopt it into our city code. It defines what homegrown goods are that can be offered for sale at the market, and establishes the residents that will be allowed to use the market to sell their goods, and those are basically residents of the Upper Cumberland area, the 14-county area, and residents of southern Kentucky, and that is defined in the ordinance as the counties that adjoin the state line above the Upper Cumberland region. And it also requires that that an application be completed, and that the applicant must certify in that application that all of his or her goods are homegrown. That's basically the thrust of the ordinance, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, sir. I have a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments from the council?
I know I enjoy the farmer's market, and once it starts opening up, I think it starts in May, or I don't know exactly, but That's one of my favorite places to go on Saturday morning, is to get all the homegrown goods.
Actually, Councilman Anderson, we were in consultations with Scott Chadwell. He actually said that some vendors come as early as February to sell greens.
Yes.
So we have put the months for operation will be from February 1st through November 30th.
Oh, okay. That's great.
How is this going to, is it going to be self-regulated more or less on a honor system of the participants?
Well,
that sign?
it's certainly an honor system, but this ordinance, and I may not have covered all the facts of this that good, but it does establish that the city codes enforcement officer or a Cookeville police officer can enforce these rules and regulations. And it does, it provides that rule violators will receive one warning, and a second violation could result in suspension or revocation of their permit. And it has an appeal process to the city manager or his designee within 5 calendar days of that suspension or revocation.
Have there been any problems with these things? Have there been complaints, or is it just that it's growing so much that we need some rules and regulations at this time?
That's a little bit of both. I think the major complaint I hear is that some people are selling stuff that they don't think's homegrown.
Will this permit be exposed to the people that visit the farmer's market, either on the truck or the table they have set up?
This ordinance requires them to publicly display that permit.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. Actually, we talked about this in the work session. I didn't realize we didn't have any ordinances. We really just all we had was basically an honor system, which I thought actually worked pretty well. But I do appreciate this ordinance. I guess what I wanted to say is that what I found out in the work set we talked about in the work sessions, this is kind of a work in progress as far as I'm concerned. Mr. Shipley, in his research, there's just not a lot of ordinances out there for regulating farmers markets. So we didn't have a whole lot to go on as far as templates on how to do this. So I look forward to the comments from the vendors that are going to be participating in this. I'd really like to hear from them and see what their thoughts and concerns are about this. If some of the things that we're doing in this ordinance are hindrances, and as long as everybody's playing fair and following the rules, I personally feel like we could come back and make some changes in this to make this better for all those involved. So I consider it a work in progress, and I'm going to vote for it. And I think it's a step in the right direction. But I look forward to hearing from the vendors, the people who are doing it, and the participants, the folks that are buying that stuff, to see how this is working.
The Scott Chadwell, the ag agent here in Putnam County, plans on having a meeting for all the vendors in April, and that letter will go out soon. I don't know the date, but we'll share this ordinance with them, and if there are suggested changes, we can always go back and amend it. But I would think most of the vendors will appreciate having some written rules and regulations to go by.
The only negative comment I've ever heard about the farmer's market at all is from vendors who have been bothered by people that they viewed as not selling items from Tennessee and or that were homegrown. And I think that this certainly clears it up, and I feel like the vendors will be pleased with this regulation, quite frankly.
I think so too.
I think this just, a lot of it's a result of growing pains, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we're trying to grow with it and figure it out as we go. And if it, like Vice Mayor.
Market needs to be about 3 times the size it
Right.
is.
We're looking at that too.
Yeah.
We're looking at that too. This is a good problem for us to
Yeah,
have.
it
Yeah,
is.
it is a good problem.
So we're all open to comment and suggestions. So anyway, any other comments, questions?
No.
Anything from the audience? Yes, sir.
I don't envy Jim Shipley here, what he has to deal with the farmer's market. Serious. Most of your vendors, 90% of them are children. I don't care what type of market, but that's another story. In your thing, you don't want outside produce. You more or less what you're saying. You just want homegrown. There's a lot of ethnic people that are moving into Cookeville and the surrounding area. I myself is starting a CSA farm called Crown Farms. I bring in about 10% from outside sources. I try my best to bring it in from Tennessee. okay? But there's like peaches and stuff like that that do come from Georgia and that I sell. Would those be allowed at the farmer's market? Because now, I just touched base with Kathy there. She said it's about 50-50 you can bring in and you're okay. I think whatever percentage you're allowing from outside needs to be written down in the ordinance so people know.
That's a good point.
You know, yeah, because, I mean, you got a lot of different things going on. You're saying to have the, take your time, right, you know, the permit, you have these right now, which is fine, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to pick on Kathy because that's who I just spoke to and just bounce ideas off of. People who sell like eggs, their cottage kitchen stuff and all that, that's great. I got no problem with permits. That's the law of the land. They got problems with that. You got to talk to the FDA and the Department of Ag about that stuff. But for sake of mine, as the police department or the codes officials, to have on record here, but have the permit state on there what that vendor is allowed. Like, say they're selling eggs, have an egg stamp or a symbol that cannot be duplicated, more or less. I mean, you don't got to make it high tech, but this way, like me as even a customer can walk up and see this and say, he has certified eggs. I could trust buying from this vendor, you know what I'm saying? So, because that's a big thing, you know, because you just can't go there and sell eggs. Same with cottage kitchen, which is people selling kitchen stuff from their home. You know, have a symbol with that. So, you know, these people are certified that their documents are on file with the city ordinance people or whoever. You know, if anybody wants to ask me more questions or ideas, I mean, nothing, you know, just I can give you my name and phone number. I'd be glad to.
Yes, sir. We didn't catch your name. What is your name?
Oh, my name is Jason Criscio, Kryscio.
Kryscio.
Yeah, correct. Okay. Another way you could separate like people out who are selling the non-homegrown, have them in two sections of the farmer's market. Like the ones that are homegrown, let them have the privilege of being under the canopy. The ones that are not homegrown, let them set up down on the grass. You know what I mean? I set up on the grass. It don't bother me. You know what I'm saying? Then customers know these are not the homegrown. These are mixed. Then this is homegrown underneath there. Then like customers decide. But I don't. This guy got a task and a half, boy, with people, because trust me, you know, I mean, you guys are up against a lot. I prefer to see it as the honor system, not falling under ordinances, because it's going to open up a can of worms that's going to drive you all crazy. You know what I mean? But just be crystal clear on like what vendors can sell and not sell like that. You know, I would like to see it open to like 50-50 at least. I was just at the Overton County one. They do that where they allow if you have 50% of the produce is yours and 50% is not, you could sell there, but if more, you have to have your tax permit, which to me is no problem. I have a tax permit if I want. That's the law of the land, you know what I mean? I sold out the Cookeville flea market. If you sold your own produce, you didn't have to get a tax number, the green sheet for taxes. But if you bought stuff in, you had to buy a tax paper. So if a vendor don't want to do that, then you got to question the vendor. You know what I mean? Then the vendor's maybe not legit or they're just being shady. You know what I mean? So just keep that in mind. But if it's an honest vendor, let them just pay it. You know what I mean? Because that's you know, they're going to have the paperwork anyway. You know, if they have a cottage kitchen, you're going to have it certified by the Department of Ag and all that. So if they, you know, so they will have some sort of documentation. And going back to that certified kitchen, people can take the course now online. I didn't realize that to this year. I got the paperwork from Scott last year at his meeting where he handed everybody at that meeting email sites and all that for people to get the right permits for selling flowers, doing eggs, home kitchen. Everybody had these papers. Now, whoever follows up on it, hey, whatever, you know. But now I took the initiative because I want to start a home kitchen thing. And I called them up over there at UT Extension, and they said, no, you could take the course online now. I didn't even realize that. You pay for it online, and you can do it at your own pace. So now that opens up a whole new avenue to people like here in the audience who might want to do it where they can take the course.
Mr. Criscio, this sounds like things that you're mentioning are basically the things that I was concerned about. How this is a work in progress, and a lot of the things that you're mentioning, I think, are excellent, and it's really very illuminating for me. I would ask that you attend as well as other vendors attend that meeting in April.
Yeah, I do.
To let us work that out, and then what we can do on our end, if these items that you're mentioning have validity, then as a council member, which I know that I feel certainly do, as a council member, I would not hesitate to relook at these ordinances again and try to incorporate some of those things, these very pertinent points that you're mentioning.
That's fantastic. The young lady at your desk out there in the hallway, she gave me a preliminary date for the 23rd or the 23rd or the 24th of April, possibly for that meeting. So yeah, I'm going to call Scott. I got his phone number, and I'll find out about that. But yeah, I mean, if vendors just talk to one another and let them know the rules are out there. I have just to touch base with you real quick. At the last meeting, I made a little bit of commotion about okra there because, see, you're supposed to have a scale to weigh okra. You cannot sell okra by the bunch or by the piece or anything like that. It has to be sold only by weight. That's why I don't envy the city ordinance people. Now, that's Department of Weights and Measures. That has nothing to do with none of you guys. So, I mean, that's something you really should be looking into. Now, you can get that information, which was supplied again by the UT Extension, which came down and tested everybody's scale down there that was running the scale. And they tried to be nice to the people, but the people got excited. Then out came the weights and the fines. So, but now you got to need a Class 3 scale, but that's up to the vendors to know their responsibility on what they're doing. And that should be also stressed in your paper. It's going to be hard to do it all because it is up to the honor system, and you should know your rules. I mean, it's a work in progress even for the vendor. I mean, you've got to stay up on what's the law and not the law. I mean, it's above and beyond what you guys do. I thank you for your time. If, like I said, anyone you want my number to get information or something like that, I'll be glad to supply it. I can give it to the clerk lady there.
Yeah.
Great.
Would you-
We'd appreciate that.
You want my number or anything?
Yes, yeah.
Please, if you would give it
okay.
to Ms. Kathy.
But
that'd be
let
great.
me make one comment. The way it is right now, the way it is right now, everything is strictly homegrown. So if he wanted to bring those peaches in from Georgia, they would not be permitted the way the
Right.
ordinance is
The way it's-
drawn right
Correct.
I'm going to go ahead and vote. I'm going to go ahead and vote for it as it stands, just to kind of get the ball rolling. But again, if these things come up in this April meeting, and they mentioned that, or it comes up and says this could be a problem, then I'm very excited about addressing it
now.
again.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to point that
I
out.
would suggest that we pass it on first reading tonight, and we can wait for the second reading until after that April meeting.
That might be
we've
a
been
good
doing
idea.
without this.
Yeah,
ordinance.
no, that is good.
Do we
Yes.
need to?
And we'll get that input and try to get it.
I'll make an
Do I
amendment.
need to-
I'll make an
yeah.
amendment to that. I'd like to make an amendment that we go ahead and vote on this, and that if indeed it does pass, that we place a second reading after the April meeting, April informational meeting. I make that motion.
You mean amendment?
The amendment. Sorry.
I'll second it.
So that was all in one motion.
What?
Well, I just made an amendment to the
No,
motion
he
because we've
meant-
already.
Who
We've
made
already.
the motion?
So I just made an amendment to our motion that we
We got to vote on the amendment.
Yeah,
first.
so we got to vote.
We've got to vote on the amendment first.
I thank you for your time. Let me just give you.
Thank you, Ms. Criscio.
Or we can discuss the amendment and then vote on it. Just saying.
Do you have a motion? Do you have a second?
I said,
You second?
I
Okay,
seconded
okay.
his amendment.
Any questions on the amendment?
I agree with it.
I'll vote on the amendment.
We're voting on the amendment.
Yes.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
All right. So,
we have to vote on the motion as amended.
Yes, vote on the motion as amended. Any questions or comments first? Okay, I'll vote.
5 yes votes on the motion as amended.
Thank you. Criscio, thank you very much. That's very good information. And that's what we're looking for. Just like Vice Mayor Epps said, this is a work in progress, and so we want to hear these things.
He can call me and I could.
Yeah, we need the
touch base
input.
a little bit more.
Okay, thank you. All right, on to item 7. Consider appointments to the Public Building Authority. Sponsor is City Manager Jim Shipley.
We have 2 terms to fill on the Public Building Authority. Jill Horner has agreed to fill Melinda Swan's term, and her term will expire in May of 2016. And Mark Hudgens to fill Clarence Smith's term, and that term will expire in May of 2018. And I would recommend your approval.
All right, motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any questions, comments from the council?
These people have agreed to serve, correct?
Yes, they have.
Good. We always like for people to do that.
Anything else? All right, all vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
All right, item 8. Consider authorizing the Electric Department Director to execute an agreement with Windstream KDL, Inc. for joint use pole attachments. Sponsors Mr. Tony Peak.
Mayor and Council, you should have the copy of the agreement in front of you. We have several other agreements of this type. This is with Windstream KDL Incorporated. This agreement is to attach a fiber cable to some of our poles along Neal Street. Basically, Windstream KDL is going to run from a pedestal in the area of the mall along a portion of Neal Street, go underground, and eventually wind up at Averett Express and provide some data for them, is what this whole agreement's about. The agreement is basically, except for the name change, verbatim to 3 or 4 other agreements that we have with Deltacom, Charter, Iris Network, and others. The annual attachment fee is the same for all. It's $12.52. The licensee, as always, if a pole has to be changed out due to the requested additional height, they have to pay for that cost, not only for us to change the pole out, but to rearrange other facilities that are on that pole that might belong to other license holders. The initial term of the agreement is 5 years, automatically renewable annually thereafter, and I'd recommend your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Peak. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments from the council?
I just have a question. Mr. Peak, how close are some of those poles to maxing out? I mean, we're really stacking them on there, and for business-wise, this is a great thing. But how close are we to getting maxed out on those things? And then what do you do when you max out?
Go to a taller pole, and that's why we have the provision in there that they have to pay full cost for that pole change out and the rearrangement of all those other facilities.
Is there a limit on how tall?
Normally, our poles are between 40 and 50 feet. If it's a 50-foot pole, then it's really not a big bother. But yes, some of the 40s and 45s are pretty close to maxing out, and they'll have to be changed out, most likely.
And this agreement's for 5 years.
5 years.
$12.52. Will there be at some point in 5 years we will renegotiate that price?
We will, and we can do that after 3 years.
Okay.
And basically, what we've done in the past, Mr. Woodford, is we look at all of the pole owners in the state of Tennessee and see what they're charging, and we just use an average weighted price.
Okay.
All right, any other comments, questions? Comments, questions from the audience? All right, seeing none, I'll vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peak. Item 9, consider awarding bid for labor for the Southwest Substation, 13 kV feeders, interstate crossing. Electric Department sponsors, Mr. Tony Peak.
Mayor and Council, we solicited bids. This is the portion of line that will go out the north side of the substation and Business Park, cross over I-40 over to Minelet Creek Road, where we'll be sending power back into town and more westwardly. And we had 2 bidders, Service Electric Company and Dillard Smith Construction. I'm familiar with both those companies. Service Electric Company was a low bidder meeting our specifications, and I'd recommend them for approval. And they constructed our South Cookeville substation in 2000, so very familiar and very pleased with their work.
Good. All right, do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
All right, questions from the council? Questions, comments from the audience? All right, seeing none, I'll vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peak. All right, this is part of the meeting where we open up the floor. Any citizens or delegations that would like to speak good, bad, ugly, indifferent, anything you'd like to say. We would like, if you could, limit it to 3 minutes. So the floor is open. All I do is ask to state your name and who you're with. All right. Anything from the council?
Motion to adjourn.
All right. This meeting's adjourned.